There is something about Tanzania that spoke to us. It went beyond the wildlife and the landscapes, though those stole our breath before we even realized it. It was the feeling that somewhere between the dust and the sunsets, our whole family was being rewired, rewritten, and reimagined. Family travel can be wild and epic. Christina, the kids, and I spent a month traveling through Africa. We camped among the natural sculptures of Egypt's western desert, taught the kids to scuba dive in Mozambique, and stood drenched beside the thunder of Victoria Falls in Zambia and Zimbabwe. But nothing hit us quite like Tanzania did. Our journey began in Arusha town, the heartbeat of Tanzania's safari circuit, where it seems like there was a fire sale on classic Land Cruisers. Arusha is the crossroads to some of the most legendary national parks on Earth. Tarangire, Ngorongoro, Serengeti, and Lake Manyara. We met our guide from local tour company Luna Safari. Omari is a man with a grin as wide as his shoulders, the kind of presence that fills a Land Cruiser. You don't meet Omari, you get swept into his orbit. Bagged from a long journey from Cairo, our first stop was Karama Coffee Plantation Lodge, just outside of Arusha. Coffee fields and vegetable gardens, and an air of sustainability. The vegetables in Arabica coffee are grown right on the property. Meals are simple, mostly plant-based, with a bit of chicken or fish. And the rooms are big, airy, and blissfully free of air conditioning. You don't need it here. There's a pool with a view where we spent most of the evening relaxing. Monkeys racing through the trees, and a distinct feeling that we were about to experience something unforgettable. And with that, our family safari adventure began. 7 days traveling through the beating heart of Tanzania, chasing elephants, lions, the trip of a lifetime, and we were ready to roll. Tarangire offered up our first taste of the wild side of Tanzania, and it hit us fast. Within minutes of rolling through the park gates, we were surrounded by elephants. Everywhere. By the end of the day, we counted 58 of them, though Dylan lost track somewhere around 30 when he decided photographing them was far more fun than tallying them in his notebook. Tarangire has this rhythm to it. The air hums with life and the baobab trees rise from the dust. Omari steered us down a winding dirt road toward the Tarangire River. It was here that we felt the pulse of the park. Elephants bathing, buffalo wading, baboons causing trouble in every direction. Omari told us, if you want to understand elephants, You start in Tarangire. And he was right. Watching a matriarch lead her herd across the riverbed felt like watching a family reunion, complete with stubborn teenagers and carefree toddlers. That night, we checked into Farm of Dreams Lodge, a sprawling resort tucked into the hills near Karatu. The journey from Karatu toward Ngorongoro Highlands winds through farmland and small towns. The air was thick with the smell of charcoal fires and red dust. Every few miles, we'd pass men and teenagers in bright shukas, those iconic red and blue cloths of the Maasai, herding cattle or goats along the roadside. Somewhere near the edge of Ngorongoro Conservation Area, Omari slowed the Land Cruiser and said, "Let's see if anyone's home." That's how you visit the Maasai village here. No stage shows or scheduled tours. If the families are around and the timing feels right, you're welcomed in. We pulled up to a cluster of circular huts made of acacia wood and cow dung, surrounded by a fence of thorny branches. And we were welcomed. The boys tried to match the men's vertical jumps. Even with their athleticism, it was a challenge. We were ushered into one of the homes. The air was cool and the light was dim. Our host told us stories of the village and how the local communities live. The Maasai men, around the age of 14 and up, work beyond the village, tending livestock. While the women manage the home and sell handmade jewelry to travelers like us. It's a delicate balance between tradition and the modern world pressing in from all sides. Travel, at its best, rewires the way you see the world. And nowhere did that feel more true than when we rolled into Serengeti National Park. The name alone feels mythical. The soul of wild Africa. But as Dylan and I climbed to a viewpoint and stood, watching the horizon ripple with the afternoon heat, I realized that nothing really prepares you for it. We hadn't been inside the park for an hour before we saw our first lions. A family of them stretched out in the shade of the long grass, looking more like oversized lazy kittens than the lords of the plains. But that wouldn't be our last of the lions in the park. Soon I had that epic Mufasa shot that I'd been wishing for ever since we started planning our travels in Tanzania. And that wasn't all we saw that day. In every direction, the Serengeti showed us its magic. By late afternoon, we reached Olakira Lodge, our home base for the next 2 nights. Tent doesn't quite do it justice. These were canvas walls and wooden floors with full showers, flush toilets, and beds that could swallow us whole. The next morning began at 3:30 a.m. I'll be honest, none of us were thrilled about the wake-up time. But when the burners on our hot air balloon roared to life and we lifted off, it was bliss. Beneath us, the Serengeti was laid out like a living map. Captain Rosa, our Spanish pilot, pointed out all the wildlife as we coasted effortlessly through the air. The rest of our day in the Serengeti blurred from one spectacular moment to another. By late afternoon, we ticked off almost every one of the big five. All but one, the elusive leopard. Omari was determined. We parked near a thicket where one had been spotted earlier, waiting for over an hour. Nothing. The kids dozed off, Christina and I debated calling it a day, and then a voice crackled over the radio. A sighting, not far from where we had just been. Omari spun the wheel of the Land Cruiser and we jolted back along the dirt track, dust flying. And there it was, hidden in the long grass, eyes glinting in the fading light. A leopard. When the sun began to dip below the horizon, we stopped for a sundowner, a Serengeti tradition. A solitary rain cloud formed overhead and dripped down on us. Christina danced in the rain, singing that iconic line from Toto's Africa. It was then that I realized something. Our travels in Tanzania weren't about checking animals off a list. It was about moments like this, when time stops and you feel like the whole planet is holding its breath alongside you. The following morning, we said goodbye to Olakira Lodge and began the long drive back through the Serengeti towards Ngorongoro crater. When we reached the crater rim, it felt like we'd arrived at the edge of the world. It was hard to believe that this place was once a massive volcano, taller than Kilimanjaro, before it collapsed in on itself millions of years ago. What arose from its destruction was a microcosm of Eastern Africa. Lions, elephants, flamingos, and wildebeest, all living together within a 20 square kilometer amphitheater. After hours in the crater, there was one animal we hadn't seen yet, the black rhino. We thought our luck was running out. After finishing up a picnic lunch by a small lake, Cohen pointed to the tall grass in the distance. And sure enough, a mother black rhino and her calf, grazing quietly just a few hundred meters away. two of only about 80 black rhinos left in all of Tanzania. Ngorongoro felt different from the other parks. Calmer, more reflective. Maybe it was the isolation of the crater, or maybe it was the knowledge that this place, this single crater, held one of the densest concentrations of life on Earth. We checked into Manyara's Secret, a boutique lodge perched high above Lake Manyara. It was one of those rare places that somehow manages to feel both luxurious and personal. The kind of place where the staff greet you by name before you've even checked in, and everyone's welcome to come visit the kitchen. The next morning, we headed to Lake Manyara National Park for our final Tanzanian safari. After the wide-open vistas of the Serengeti and the grandeur of Ngorongoro, Manyara felt almost intimate, like the forest was keeping its secrets close. Lake Manyara is one of the most unpredictable national parks in Tanzania. The lake has no outlets, so its water level is always changing. Roads that existed one year can vanish beneath the surface the next. It's a park that's constantly reinventing itself and forcing everything that lives within it to do the same. Manyara is famous for its tree-climbing lions, though Amari laughed when I asked about them. All lions can climb, he said, but here they've got more trees to practice. We never did spot one, but it didn't matter. At this point, safari wasn't about what we saw anymore. It was about what we felt. After days of dirt roads, game drives, and early mornings, rolling back into Arusha town felt almost surreal. We checked into the Gran Melia Arusha, a sprawling hotel wrapped in tropical gardens and coffee fields. In the morning, the hotel's groundskeeper, Moses, took us on a tour of the property. He showed us the beehives tucked behind the coffee plants and the herbs grown for the kitchen. Cohen got to taste fresh jalapeno right off the stem and instantly regretted it. We met up with a local guide from Luna Safari for a walking tour through Arusha town. We rode tuk-tuks that weave between traffic toward farmers markets, Maasai shops, and local restaurants. Our final stop was the Natural History Museum. We saw casts of ancient footprints and fossils that told the story of humanity's beginning in Tanzania's Olduvai Gorge. It was a full circle moment, from watching elephants cross rivers in Tarangire to seeing the echoes of the first humans who once walked these same plains. Tanzania challenged us. It thrilled us and it grounded us. It reminded us that adventure isn't about distance or danger. It's about curiosity and the willingness to find answers. If this journey has stirred something in you, if you're dreaming about taking your family somewhere that pushes you a little past your comfort zone, hit that like button, subscribe, and start planning your own adventure. Because sometimes all it takes is one trip to remind you how wide this world really is. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Wandering Waggar's Adventure Family Travel.